Open world PvP. A system, or lack of a system, in MMOs that can make or break a player's experience. A system that's far too aggressive with too few boundaries and rules set can make players extremely frustrated and never log into a game again. Most people, even PvP lovers themselves, don't enjoy not being able to ever complete a quest or gather a specific resource just because one guy who plays 15 hours a day decides that he wants to dedicate his life to following you around. I'd also say that a good portion of gamers don't enjoy a world that feels kinda dead over time, because you have nothing ever to worry about besides the stupid AI that have been running the same pattern since the game's launch. And this is where PvP can come in, because players are, well, unpredictable. There's an endless amount of variations of types of players you may come across. Different gear combinations, classes, mindsets, attitudes, skill levels. All of this and more makes each player and encounter unique. Something that a game with no PvP simply cannot accomplish. An open world PvP system that is present but not lawless can really create a world that feels alive. Seeing another player in the distance or just knowing that one can be around gets the blood flowing and can create emotions such as excitement, fear, perhaps tension, and maybe even lead to feelings of joy, relief, or frustration. The lack of feeling any sort of alertness in games can kill games just as easily as a horribly thought out open world PvP system. And this is why we're going to go over and discuss Ashes of Creation, because PvP is a big part of the world in this game. This video isn't going to focus on objective-based PvP, which can be in the open world, or instance-based PvP. It's going to focus on the general running around open world PvP flagging and corruption system. Keep in mind that this game is still going through its developmental stages, so things are subject to change, and some of the gameplay used in this video is kind of old. Once you guys understand the system, let us know your thoughts below in the comments, and let's try to be respectful, guys, otherwise we will know who the griefers already are. Let me start off by letting you guys know that I am a fan of open world PvP. That feeling of alertness and never knowing what can truly happen is something that can really keep a game fresh. I love feeling truly alive in a game. Well, I guess, and sometimes dead. I also understand and recognize that if not done correctly, griefing and zergs can absolutely ruin a game. As I've been told before, don't underestimate some of these griefers. Even with rules and boundaries in place, people will still amaze you in the worst ways. Intrepid Studios is, of course, very aware of this.
With regards to griefing, per se, you're not going to see griefing in the game very often. And that's because our flagging system, the corruption mechanics, are based around disincentivizing a griefer or PKer, but still offering the opportunity, should the occasion arise where the benefits outweigh the risk, you have the ability to do so. If you gain corruption, which is killing a non-combatant, a player who is not fighting back, basically, your world has changed. It is not going to be a very beneficial place to be in.
That was Steven, the owner and creative director at Intrepid Studios, and you can tell they obviously have a plan and a foundation to work off of. Some of you guys might recognize some of these mechanics from previous MMOs such as Lineage 2. Let's go over them. In the open world in Ashes of Creation, you can be attacked or attack another player, but this involves the PvP flagging system designed to help deter griefing. Griefing, for those of you who may not know, is basically intentionally harassing other players and ruining their experience. There will be 3 levels of flagging: non-combatant, combatant, and corrupted. All players will start off as non-combatants and can remain so if they so choose. Your name will be displayed in green at this stage, which lets everyone else know. As a non-combatant, the idea is that you should suffer less attacks from other players, because killing a non-combatant will make the attacking player corrupt. Before we get into corruption though, let's talk about the second stage of flagging. If a non-combatant attacks another non-combatant, a green attacks a green, the attacking player becomes a combatant, and their name is now displayed in purple. This has to be a forced attack, which will require a player to hit Control F before attacking or hold down specific buttons while activating skills, so you can't really accidentally attack another player and be flagged purple. If the green player who was attacked decides to fight back, they also become a combatant themselves and turn purple. There is actually a benefit for being purple, because in this stage you will suffer less severe death penalties than if you die as a non-combatant or as a corrupt player. The idea is to encourage players to fight back. Being purple is not a bad thing. However, you don't have to, and if you decide to not retaliate, you will remain green. It's at this point that the attacking player, who is now purple, has to decide whether they want to keep attacking and ultimately kill you, which will turn them corrupt, or just stop attacking, which is probably the smarter choice in most situations. And that brings us to stage 3, which is a player being corrupt, where their name will be displayed in red. If a combatant kills a non-combatant, they will be flagged as corrupt. And if the corrupt player decides to kill more green players, their corruption will increase even more. In simple terms, if you're a green player and someone kills you, they become red. So players not wanting to engage in combat become very risky targets because they cause corruption, which comes with a hell of a lot of risk. A corrupt player who is killed will suffer penalties at 4 times the rate of a non-combatant. I'm sure that rate is subject to change with testing. To put this into context, a green player that dies will suffer the normal death penalties of experience debt, which is not de-leveling, but it's more so a debt that you have to work off to get back to normal. And this comes along with skill and stat dampening, lower health and mana, lower gear proficiency, and lower drop rates from monsters. Now times this by 4 for a corrupt player's death. Now keep in mind that we don't know to what extent to how bad these death penalties truly are. Time and testing will tell, but timesing them by 4 for a corrupt player sounds pretty serious. Even more importantly to note is that corrupt players will also have a chance to drop any carried or equipped items, while non-combatants can only drop a percentage of carried gatherables and processed goods. So the beautiful sword you are using that took 30 times on one raid boss to drop, as a corrupt player it has a chance to go bye-bye, and actually be looted by another player as well. A green or purple player will not lose carried or equipped gear. Players who are flagged as corrupt will also have their location revealed to bounty hunters, which from what I understand is a PvP activity that citizens from an advanced military node can participate in. The one potential problem that I can see with this in particular is that corrupt players might thrive off of bounty hunters coming after them. It sounds pretty exciting and may in turn encourage corruption, which can be okay too, but remember that green players have to die for corruption to be gained. Also, when a corrupt player fights a bounty hunter, their combat penalties do not apply. So this can also give an edge of excitement to being corrupt, because when bounty hunters come after you, you will not be suffering any combat penalties that you might suffer against players that are not bounty hunters. These are all things that we have to watch through the testing and see how it all plays out. So being flagged as corrupt does seem to carry a lot of risk with it. It's also important to note that if green or purple players attack a red corrupted player, their PvP status will not be affected. So corrupt players are basically hot targets that drop a lot of loot, and the ones who attack them take on much less of a risk. And as I said earlier, if a corrupt player kills more green players, they take on more corruption, making their death penalties even more severe. And also, if you attack a player that's of much lower level than yourself, this will also increase the amount of corruption that you take on, so pick on people your own size. So basically this is a system that is tugging on both ends, encouraging players to PvP but also discouraging them from being continuous a-holes. Corruption is extremely risky, while being a combatant, which is purple, carries the least severe death penalty, and being a non-combatant is supposed to make you a much less desirable target. They have a risk versus reward system going on here. I'm definitely excited to see how it plays out. Intrepid Studios is trying to make it so that killing a non-combatant should either just not be done or only be done for a very, very good reason. And these reasons may present themselves once in a while, even for those of us who don't like killing players who don't want to be killed. This in turn should make everyone aware of their surroundings when out and about, making the world feel alive, exciting, and of course dangerous. There's of course going to be troll players running around not caring about their corruption and gear, but from what we're told, if we kill the trolls enough, the corruption should at some point make them ineffective. This is promising to hear. The trolls will eventually end up gearless and not be able to do much. Intrepid even mentioned in the past that corruption may have an effect on the player's appearance. But once again, I have to remind myself that the lengths that some players are willing to go just to satisfy their need to make other people not enjoy themselves can be insane. From buying gold and stacking up endless gear, to purchasing and leveling multiple accounts, to creating Zerg parties and more. 100 semi-organized trolling corrupt players, even with corruption penalties on them, could create some major problems on a server that can't gather enough heroes to stop the madness. So what do you guys think? Will the PvP flagging system and corruption end up ruining Ashes of Creation, or making it really awesome? Or should that even be a question? Probably not at this point, because the game still has to undergo its alpha and beta testing, which can bring about a lot of change. Non-consensual types of open world PvP are very hard to predict, and many games in the past have had massive issues with it, while some have had success. Since I discovered this company though, I have enjoyed hearing and learning about what they have planned, and much of what they say I seem to really vibe with. I like their attitude. They definitely don't seem to be in the business of, let's make sure that every single person who ever watched Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter will want to buy our game. It's not like that. If you absolutely can't stand even the thought of PvP, and that's totally okay, the game's probably not going to be for you. If you're just in general not a huge fan of PvP, I would still keep an eye on this game and see how the alpha and beta stages play out. And those in the middle and PvP lovers alike, you of course should be very excited. Anyone just hearing about this game for the first time, let me just remind you that there's a ton of PvE content in this game, as well as plenty of other types of PvP, naval wars, node sieges, arenas, caravans, dueling, guild wars, and more. And these types of PvP will not bring about those death penalties that we talked about earlier. There's really so much to talk about, and you're in the right place to get your information. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'm really enjoying delving into this game. I haven't been this excited for an MMO in many years. If you guys ended up enjoying this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. It's a huge help to my videos. I do all sorts of content on this channel, ranging from live streams to game reviews to game tutorials to class guides to lore videos and much more. I'd love to have some of you guys back for a future video. Until next time.